This program is not intended to diagnose, cure, or treat any disease or disorder. The listener is encouraged to seek sound medical advice from their doctor or other qualified healthcare practitioner before taking any supplements or starting a new health regimen. And welcome to the Nutrition Heretic Podcast as we wind our way through February and, Valentine's and all that stuff and all the romance and the chocolates and the, all that crazy sweet stuff that's probably flying around that, you're making rationalizations for. I mean, let's face it, that's why we have holidays, right? So we can eat stuff. That's why we do that. Adrienne Hugh, how are you today?
I'm fine, Jim. Thanks for asking.
Oh, well, I'm happy. It's sunny and it's warm here, and it's weird because it's sunny and warm here in Canada. And,
it's always sunny and warm here.
Yeah, And, what I like about you, Adrienne, is that living in Hawaii, you never rub that in.
No, never.
You never rub that in. You never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I'm going down to the beach later, so I just have to throw that.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I'd rather shovel snow than lava.
Okay.
There you go. I don't know if you can shovel lava, but hey.
Yeah, well, you could try.
So
it'd melt your shovel, but
there you go. So look, apparently some new government guidelines have come out, and not surprisingly, you have some.
I can't stand them. I think the government's crazy.
Is it that bad?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Well,
the problem is that each set of guidelines seems to get us further away from real food. And they, on the one hand, they kind of make it sound good. And there's certain things I definitely can support, but the implementation of it brings us more towards synthetic things that are just not found in nature. And this, I know I've talked about this before, this plays upon the concept that our bodies are healthy and that we're here quite by accident because obviously our ancestors didn't know what the heck they were doing. So the government guidelines talk about trans fats. And yes, we do want to keep these synthetic trans fats that are made in the margarine factories out of our diet. But then they tell us stuff like, okay, so where is the trans fat? Okay, it's in creamer, cookies, crackers, cakes, frozen pies, other fast food, frozen pizza, ready-to-use frostings, yada, yada, yada. They go through this whole list. And then they're like, well, stay off the stick margarine, but the soft margarine in a tub, liquid, or spray is okay. And only choose lean cuts of meat and skinless poultry, which doesn't have trans fats. There is a little bit of trans fat in butter, but it's a trans fat that actually benefits us. It's not like the synthetically made ones. But, we got to stay off of butter because it's fat. Anyway, and then they get into the milks, and they're saying a substitute fat-free or skim, low-fat milk products or yogurt and cheese for or fortified soy beverages for whole fat milk and milk products. And that's just wrong on so many levels. And on the blog, I believe there's an article that I wrote several years ago that shows that the kids who drink full fat milk are slimmer than the kids who drink the skim low fat nonsense. And certainly the ones who drink the soy beverages, because we talked about soy a few weeks ago with Kayla Daniel, and she talks about how it jacks up your hormones and often leads to weight gain because it suppresses thyroid function.
You know what I call skim milk, eh? I call it Smurf milk.
Exactly. Because it's blue.
It's blue, and I don't know. I have never met a blue cow, and it just kind of bothers me.
Yes, absolutely. But what happened is when they studied school children and they put the different groups on the different varying levels of fat, the ones who drank the low fat and skim milk, they were more likely to consume a lot more. Now you have to remember, once you take the fat out, what's left is essentially just sugar.
Really?
And yes.
And so even if you've got cats. I gotta go herd the cats, Martha. I'm
Cats are off
herding.
limits down here.
I'm a cat herder. That's what I do. The cows. If the cows are just eating grass, let's say they're not doing the hormones thing and everything else, right?
Right.
Then can you tell me where they get the sugar to put in the milk?
If it didn't have parents, it's sugar.
If it didn't have parents, it's sugar?
Yeah. Meaning that plants all break down to carbohydrate on some level. So when you take, there's three macronutrients. There's sugar, fat, or I should say carbohydrate, fat, and protein. Yes, there is some protein in skim milk, but it is so heavily damaged from the ultra pasteurization process that it is very foreign to a lot of people's bodies. So this is why many people think they have milk allergies, is because they're consuming what I call frankenproteins, which are these heavily damaged proteins from ultra pasteurization, and really in the absence of the fat to assimilate and use that protein properly, you're really ending up with a sugar balance.
Well, I mean, somewhere right now, Louis.
On top of it, people are, because it's not satisfying, because there is no fat in there. Doesn't stick to your ribs, so to speak. People will consume 2 and 3 times as much.
Well, that's true. My parents were, that was when this whole skim milk thing really caught on, and my parents were really big on that, on the skim milk. And it's certainly true. You do drink a lot more. And now I always made the connection that it's more refreshing. It's kind of like light beer.
No.
So you drink more of it, which kind of
drink
defeats
more of
the
it
purpose.
because your body is starving. It's saying, I need nutrients. Give me nutrients, and the only thing you're letting me drink is this blue swill. So just give me 2 or 3 times that, and till the point that my belly wants to burst, and then I'll feel full.
Well, okay.
Or you could just have that 4% fat that naturally would be on top.
Well, that explains the kid in grade school that used to be able to shoot milk through his nose, I guess. I'm not making that up. There was this, he could go 20 feet.
I'm assuming that wasn't you?
No, that wasn't me. I never developed any really good sort of, those weird kid skills that that some kids have that they freak people out with.
Yeah. I find that hard to believe, but anyway. So this whole thing on the government guidelines, it brings up what's been a very sore spot for me living in Hawaii, where we do have some really high obesity rates, which most people don't think of. They think of kind of the Baywatch version of Hawaii, where people are just running in skimpy little bikinis, although some of them do still wear the skimpy bikinis. But we do have an issue with obesity and children's health. So last year, and they're actually gearing up to do it again, we went to this festival in town where it was like the healthy keiki. Keiki is Hawaiian for children or child. The Healthy Keiki Festival. So we go there, and there's a table of nurses from varying hospitals around the island, and they keep trying to shove some cake on my kid. And I'm like, no, that's okay. And they're like, but there's 3 servings of vegetables in it. And I'm like, that's okay. My kid eats vegetables. So they're like, yeah, but it's cake with vegetables. And they keep trying to shove this cake on my kid. So right next to them there is, and I'll have to give you a picture so we can put it up on the blog. There's a picture of I have a picture of the box cake mix, Duncan Hines or whatever, and then a can of pumpkin, half zucchini, and I forget what the third item was. It was basically some piddly amount of corn or whatever the heck they put in there. But basically, this is what they're calling healthy now, as if the presence of the pumpkin and the zucchini and the other vegetable are miraculously going to counteract all the chemicals, dyes, and sugar in the cake mix.
So carrot muffin's bad then? It's like...
Don't have to come over there and slap you.
No, listen, I mean, you're killing all my rationalizations here. It's because I do the same thing. Hey, there's carrots in it. It's
Yeah, that may
not
have been
bad.
actually the other vegetable. It may have been some grated carrot in there, but it was I was beside myself. So to make matters worse, the sweet woman who is doing this couldn't be less than 350 pounds, and it's telling me one of two things: either the diet that you are prescribing is completely ineffective, or the diet you are prescribing for people is so horrible that you don't even want to do it. And that's where these guidelines take a lot of people, because they take all of the gratification, all of the taste, all of the good stuff that people traditionally came to the table for out of the equation, and all you're left with is a bad choice or another bad choice.
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
No, I see where you're going with this, because it's and I agree. I think that there's, cooking used to be a ritual. Eating used to be a ritual. And it was very much the centerpiece of the family unit, of family unity, and that's gone away. That's changed.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. And so, so to compound matters, my kids about once a quarter are sent home from school with these bags of. I'm looking at this bag now. It's sponsored by Hawaiian Telcom. And by the way, the gardener, who usually is only here on Tuesdays, just showed up. So we're gonna have to take care of that in a minute. So anyway, they're sent home with this bag of food. I guess it's to help families that need help making ends meet, which a lot of us do. And it's a wonderful gesture. However, let's see, they got a can of pork and beans and tomato sauce. Turn the can, okay, white beans, tomato puree, water, sugar, less than 2% of high fructose corn syrup, salt, distilled vinegar, pork, baking soda, onion powder, artificial flavors, calcium chloride, and I think that's it. Oh, spice.
Calcium chloride. Yum, yum, yum.
And then they've got a can of Vienna sausage, mechanically separated chicken broth, water beef, pork. Hey, sounds good so far. Less than 2% salt, sugar, spices, sodium erythrobate, flavoring, sodium nitrite, and garlic powder. Do you want to try for the peanut butter?
No. No.
Sugar, peanuts, sugar, hydrogenated vegetable oils, salt, and molasses. So they can't even, so basically we're getting these messages to eat fruits and vegetables, and then this is the stuff that we're loading up our kids on. And but they did give us 1% low-fat milk, which of course has added chemically processed vitamins to it.
Yeah, it's like my father said to me once. He said, we didn't get a manual with you guys. We're just making this up as we go along. And, there's a heck of a lot of confusion going on where I'd hate to see, new parents must just go right out of their minds trying to make all these decisions. And
right.
I know that we work hard with our daughter who's 6 to, make sure that she gets, a balance, but at the same time, when convenience creeps in, it's not hard to decide, okay, pizza.
Right. And that's the thing, is that pizza doesn't have to be bad. You can, there's nothing, I have nothing wrong with a taco, pizza, hamburgers. I would feed my kids hot dogs as long as I could get a good one. Like this, there's this concept in America that there's certain foods that are actually real foods that our parents ate, like Richie Cunningham used to go to the what's it called? Al's. Right. And Arnold's and hang out and, have a burger and a shake. Like, that's not a bad thing to eat. But the problem is first of all, we eat it all the time. Somehow we need that so-called reward all the time. But we also are not consuming these in their better forms. Hand me a bacon double cheeseburger, I'll eat it. Just I want to know where my bacon and my cheese and my burger came from. That's all.
So essentially, every house and school should come with a garden. Then is what you're saying.
Yes.
It would make
Yes.
the world a better place.
That's exactly why today I invited Alethea Lai from Mala'ai Garden at the Waimea Middle School to join us. Alethea,
Hi,
hey girl, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
This is such a heartening project for me to hear about. When I first moved here, and I learned about the garden, I said I got to talk to this woman because this is just such a beautiful program. And I think what I like about it the most is that Waimea Middle School is not. It's just the regular public school. It's not the crunchy, uh, hippie charter school, Waldorfian, whatever. It's just a old school. Yet you've got this beautiful organic garden. And when I discovered that the kids, and I don't know if they're doing it again this year, but last year when I discovered that the kids sold their vegetables on Wednesdays and they were awesome vegetables and it was encouraging them and they were excited to be there, I was ecstatic to support them. And I posted it all over Facebook and told everybody I knew because people didn't know that they were there. So,
Yeah.
So thank you for heading up this project. How did you get started with the garden?
Well, I'll talk about how the garden itself got started. There was a naturopath in town named Michelle Suber who was starting to see an increase in the amount of children she was treating in her practice that really had preventable diseases and issues coming through her office. And so after a few years of this, she decided that there was something bigger going on in the community to lead these, basically kids already having, nutrition related health problems. So she started looking at some of the solutions that actually spoke to the cause. And she stumbled across the Edible Schoolyard in Berkeley, which is, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but for those who aren't, it's a school, one of the first school garden programs really in the U.S. It was attached to Alice Waters' restaurant, Chez Panisse in the Bay Area. And so she went over there to study it for 2 weeks and see what they were doing and if it could be replicated in our little town. And while she was there, she met one of the staff that was working there, Amanda Ryu. And so she came home and decided that this was indeed, what she was looking for. And so she started madly contacting the public school, which is Waimea Middle School. It's a public charter conversion school, actually.
Oh, it is. Okay.
One of the few in the state actually has that weird in-between status of being a public school, but a charter school, which is good and bad for sure. And so she did actually get support of the administration and she wrote some grants and she actually convinced Amanda to move over here and start the program for her. And so we've been on the ground, actually, this will be our 11th year at the school, which is incredible. I've been with the organization, I've been going on my 6th year. And at this point, we really started in a barren field of kikuyu grass, which is just a really sort of a harsh African savanna grassland that was brought over for cattle. Not very good for gardening. And in the beginning it was voluntary. So it was whatever teachers wanted to come out. And to be honest, there was only a few teachers in the beginning who were interested because we were literally having kids come out into an empty barren field. So you had to have some imagination at that point to see what it could be. And if you fast forward now, we're about an acre, still an organic garden. We now see all the students at the school, which is about 270 students, and we see every student approximately every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on their class schedule. So we see all health, PE, and science classes. We've evolved obviously since the beginning, but our emphasis has always been on growing healthy children first and foremost, and really teaching kids the connection between themselves and the food they eat and the land, and giving them a sense of place, in the process. And now, of course, because of pressures of, new standards of education and No Child Left Behind, and sort of the changing academic environment in this country, we certainly have found the garden to be an excellent place to really teach about all kinds of subjects. Food and nutrition, being health and wellness being the core, but it's a great place to also learn about math and science and social studies and all of these other wonderful subjects that you really, you have a deeper understanding of, at least we believe, when you can actually be outside and learning in sort of a hands-on, place-based fashion that unfortunately most of our classrooms these days just don't offer. So we do a lot of work with curriculum development as well, and really trying to back up, what's happening in the classroom.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because my older daughter in particular, she actually, both of my girls are really good at math, and a lot of what they learned and even their reading came along with me in the kitchen.
Yes.
And a lot of times we look down on these types of tasks, the gardening, the cooking, because they're not practical. But it's like, well, yes, first of all, yes, they're practical because they feed you. But yes, they also teach. My kids know fractions. My 5-year-old can count to 100 by tens, and she can,
And
she can divide in her head.
I bet they're amazing with pie charts as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have 8 slices of pizza.
Yeah. 16 people in one pie. What fractions do you need to cut the pizza up into? Yeah, that's right. And I think that's really the powerful sort of transformative aspect of school gardens, which is that they really do have the ability to sort of hit on so many important issues that are facing our children, in 2016. And so to me, that's why I like it. I think in our modern age, if you're looking at sort of creating lasting change, you have to find a solution that hits multiple levels at the same time. I think just hitting one level isn't good enough anymore, unfortunately, with the fast-paced movement of modern society. So that's what keeps me excited about school gardens in particular. We can impact so many different levels of, children's development, all with hands-on activities,
Right.
and really being out there and having your hands in the dirt, which is just such a fundamental act that I think we've really gotten away from it, and it's a shame. What we found overwhelmingly in the garden is that when kids grow their food, they'll eat the food.
Yes, exactly.
There's a certain pride that comes in learning where it comes from and learning how to take care of and nurture plants, and then being able to harvest, the fruits of your effort. Most of our kids will go ahead and eat it after they've grown it.
Yes. It's so very true. And the same goes for cooking. A lot of kids who will not eat this, will not eat that. You bring them in the kitchen and you show them how to do it, and suddenly they take pride in this. And everybody's got to eat this. I made it.
Right.
So it's a no-brainer. So how much resistance, if any, you weren't there at the very beginning, but from what you know, how much resistance was there within school administration to get something like this going? Because I think a lot of people hearing this may say, well, our school would never go for it. What was?
And I think there is some truth to that. We certainly spent a lot of years really proving that we were worthwhile and that we weren't wasting anyone's time. And I think that's a different battle that happens. I think some schools really embrace school gardens very quickly, and others, it takes still more effort yet. And even to this day, I would say our school has fairly dismal academic statistics coming out of it. And so we certainly have quite a bit of pressure to prove that we're making a positive impact on academic achievement. And so I think knowing what you're facing and what sort of concerns that you would have going into the program helps. At this point, the school guard programming and sort of the movement is very well developed, much more so than 11 years ago when we started. And so there are very wonderful, powerful resources out there that absolutely prove their value. And so you don't have to reinvent the wheel if you're starting out. You can tap into that vast amount of research and make a good case that eventually, you're going to have that same impact if you're doing good quality work.
Right. And I would also think that people could come up with different ways they can implement the sciences and math and so on to make sure that they really understand. I'm trying to think of how the best way to say this now. But to really show very concrete ways, whether it's building a birdhouse or measuring out certain, let's say, sprays or soil amendments. That's the word I'm looking for. To say, like, these are some of the things that we're doing that we can do in the garden that will further the studies that they have in the classroom and give them that tactile, hands-on relationship, because
that's right.
You learn algebra in a classroom or geometry. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
I think and I think that's the interesting part. I think it does make sense for a certain portion of students, and then I think there's kinesthetic learners, and I think they just learn entirely differently, and also a lot of the kids that I don't really like ADHD terminology per se, but I think there's a lot of kids that need a lot more movement and activity in their life. And so, being outside and being active is a much more effective way for them to learn. We don't actually know which kids are the so-called naughty ones or not out in the garden. And often the kids that we find to be the leaders and that are the rock stars are the ones that traditionally are the problems in the traditional classroom setting.
Yes.
And we have no idea when they're out in the garden. Those kids are the ones that are just so enthusiastic and are really taking leadership roles out there.
That's fantastic.
There's so much good curriculum now that's been developed around school gardens. I think that the best advice I would give to someone looking at starting a school garden is to really invest in a great teacher. Yeah. I think in this case, human capital is everything. And so finding someone that has a fairly unique set of skills, because you do need to be sort of a horticulturist and a teacher, which is, not everybody has those. But I think having both those skills and being dedicated, and really integrating with the school. We spend, our garden teacher spends a lot of time attending school meetings, especially with the science team. We work most closely with science. Health and PE, we're a natural fit. So almost anything we do, we're hitting the standards there.
Awesome.
But with science, we spend a lot of time, we try to use the same language they're using in the classes. We try to develop sort of hands-on experimental lessons that will reinforce what they're learning in the classroom. So when the kids come out, they actually have the opportunity to, practice what they're learning. And so it comes alive for them rather than just being, a lesson in a textbook, which doesn't really capture everyone's imagination.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely.
And what's funny is that this is when I was in junior high in grades 7 and 8, we actually had a community garden that was at one school, and all the schools in the area spent some time going over there. And what really sort of what I saw, at least for myself, what it did was it taught me that I could make stuff.
Yeah.
It taught me that, like, hey, look, I can take this. It's almost like the same reason people buy kids a puppy. You know what I mean? It's
No, but it's that engagement, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was really, I was like, the instructor, this teacher was telling me how to plant the stuff and everything. And until those green leaves started popping out of there, I wasn't believing them at all.
Right.
This ain't going to happen. And then when I saw those leaves bursting through, because I created it, I suddenly became very invested in the process and taking care of those things that I had planted and had actually grown.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think too, there is such a powerful connection with eating healthy food that I think is sort of on a visceral level that people respond to. I think when you eat something that's good for you, I don't think you have to actually know the nutrition guidelines. I don't think you have to have read up on latest government standards. I think you actually, if you once you've developed the skills, and we try to really teach our kids this, look at the impact. Go eat at McDonald's and then see how you feel 2 hours later, or even immediately. Versus go eat a salad that you grew yourself and see how your body feels after, and sort of, check in with yourself, because
for sure
the knowledge is right there, and you can quickly get a feel if that was something that was really serving you or not. And I do think that food still retains that power, and I think it's a great way to bring community together. And I think that it our kids feel better when they've eaten the food, and I think that that's caught on and sort of steamrolled over time. Now we have the kids that really wish the cafeteria food was improved and they could eat like they did out in the garden in the cafeteria. And to me, that's a success for what the work we're doing. They recognize that they want better food in their cafeteria.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it'll take us to get there, but
right. Well,
but
you
the fact
guys
that the
did
kids
something...
are now demanding it, right? Rather than us demanding better food, it's coming out of the kids' voices, and that's where it needs to be coming from.
Exactly. That dovetails into what my next question was, is the super kitchen. I love the freaking super kitchen, okay? And it's gone now. But, I will pay for the super kitchen, let me tell you. Can you explain to everybody what the Mela Garden super kitchen was?
Sure. That was basically a free community meal. And it really, we came out of some strategic planning we did, and we were trying to decide what we were doing as an organization. And we kind of, we chose a growth model, and we interviewed a lot of people, and they all said the work we're doing with the kids is very applicable to adults as well. And we needed to have, more community programming. And we're always looking at ways we can sort of impact, low income families, especially, who seem to have greater barriers statistically to, healthier foods. And so what we really wanted to do with the Super Kitchen was prove that you could eat healthy and affordably. So we were trying to make recipes that featured whole foods and that were less than $3 per person to recreate at home. So very, very cost affordable. And then the other component was to really have a chance for the community to come together and sit down at community tables and eat all together. We have a very wide economic divide in this town, so it was also bringing in the haves and the have-nots to sort of, sit down and share a meal together and have conversations and see who all is and who makes up our community, because there's a lot of people, at least the hope was that you maybe have no other reason to come across in your daily life, that suddenly you could get to know and sort of broaden your perspective of some of the issues that face our town. And then lastly, we were trying to find ways to have our kids realize that they're community contributors. We have 5 private schools in this town, and we're the only public school. And our private school children have all the opportunities in the world, and I think they really do feel like they're an integral part of the community. They spend a lot of time developing leadership skills at those schools. And so for us, it's really important for our kids to understand that they also are the future of this town, and that they're important, and there's all these ways they can already contribute and give back to their community. So it was really run primarily by the students. They helped prep the food and cooked it the day before in their classes, and of course got to eat the recipes themselves during class time. And we gave the recipes away to all of our school families. And then they came the next day and actually helped run the whole event. And it is a fabulous event. Unfortunately for us, we were feeding anywhere between 300 and 400 people over 2 days. And we only have a staff of 2.5. And so it was just literally killing us to pull off the event. Right. And so at some point, as a small organization, you always have to take these pauses and say, is this really our mission? Is this really what we're supposed to be doing with such a small staff? And the answer was pretty clear that it was, pushing us all to the limit. And our primary focus, although we are looking at how we're going to have community programming, our primary focus has and always will be the students at this school. And right. So it was just too much of a time sink, unfortunately, for us to do. I would love to see some other groups in the town take it over. I think it would be a perfect project for Blue Zones. But, that's just my humble opinion. Yeah.
I hope that you can find a partner to come online, some community group, because that is just so brilliant. It's just brilliant.
And you guys, you brought in some of the bigger chefs from the area, right? From the top restaurants and so on.
We in the beginning we thought that we could do it with volunteer chefs, and that worked the first couple. But then we realized also and I'm sure you have worked with chefs. They're sort of all over the map with their skill levels and certainly their egos, and so to be frank, and so it was very difficult to work with crazy different styles and skills every single time. Yeah. And also it was a lot to ask of someone to volunteer. And we really try to watch as a nonprofit, not overtapping any volunteers too much, because everybody needs to make a living, and we're really supporting sustainability on so many multiple levels, and one of them is paying people for their work. So we did end up hiring one chef and working with him for the last 5 or 6, and that certainly made the process a little bit smoother. The hard part, and this is always a challenge, is that we started towards the last half of the program, we started to see more and more low-income people, but I would say probably still the majority, 60 or 70% was middle-class Waimea.
Right.
And,
I kept saying the first, because I found out about it really just, I think it was August or so, I found out about it. And I said, why are we not paying, $5 for this or something?
Right. And so the whole idea was that, it was free, so that, encouraging low-income people to come and just have a free meal, and sort of have that idea that the power of good food would win them over. And once they've tasted something, we gave out the recipe so they could go back. We made sure all the food was sourced at KTA and in stores they're familiar with, because we do, you do realize these people don't shop at the health food stores, and maybe they're going to farmers markets. We're seeing that more and more, but maybe they aren't. And so we really tried to get the food at Costco or the local grocery stores. But we were still basically serving middle class and Waimea, and that's been an ongoing problem. We've actually had a variety of programs we've done throughout the years trying to target low-income populations, and for whatever reason, they're very successful, and we're mostly serving middle class, which I'm not sure that's the best fit for grant money and for our time and efforts. That's the socioeconomic group that has a lot more access to opportunities and resources.
Yeah,
and
I told everybody about it when I went there. I told everybody.
Yeah. And so that's always the ongoing issue is, how do we really target the families that we want? And really, our school, we have 71% at this point Title I students. So that's on free and reduced lunch. So those kids are either at or below the poverty line. And so we're trying to find ways where we can actually, deepen our relationship with our students' families, because they do represent the low income, population in this town. And there's challenges when you work with that community, because most of them are working 3 or 4 jobs. The kids are often latchkey. A lot of our students are actually in charge of their younger brothers and sisters at the elementary school already by middle school. Right. And so, and they have transportation issues. And so how do you get very busy, overstretched, families to be able to participate in events? It's a tricky one, and we certainly haven't found that magic, solution yet, but we are not a profit. So gosh darn it, we're just going to keep trying.
That's all we can ask you to do. We're going to have to wrap this up because we're coming up on time now. But I wanted to just touch on one thing. This is like a part-time gig for you. Is that correct?
It's my full-time job. Yes, I do it full-time. But then on the side, because I could talk for another whole podcast on the state of nonprofits in this country. But it's very hard to actually, make a living and think about retiring or even going on a vacation. So yeah,
it's definitely a labor of love, right?
It's a labor of love, absolutely, which I actually disagree that that's the state of our nonprofit field in general, but unfortunately that is what it is at this point. So yes, I do real estate on the side so that I can hopefully one day retire like the rest of the world and go on vacation every once in a while.
Okay, so by real estate, is that for people relocating to Hawaii or?
It's for anyone that wants to buy and sell on the Big Island of Hawaii. I'm certainly your person. Oh. I also just love real estate. It was my side passion anyways. I'm a bit of I love houses and looking at properties. So I thought if I'm going to do a second job, I better pick something that I actually enjoy.
So, and you said you only have 2.5 people. So you're one of the 2 people or 2.5?
I'm one of the, yes, we have 2 full-time employees, one of which is me. And then we have a part-time employee. Okay. And then we have a full-time food corps member. And then we really have about 25 regular volunteers. Okay. That come out every week, and they make our program possible for sure.
Yeah, just want to give people an idea of how many people does it take to run a village.
It takes a community to grow a garden, as we like to say.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alethea, for joining us today, because this is just fabulous information. I think Jim might even be a little surprised at how much he enjoyed talking about gardening.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, in our area where we are, there's this weird, we have some wildlife, coyotes and rabbits, and it was pretty funny because what happened was there were a couple of incidences with domestic pets and the coyotes. So people in the area started screaming about these coyotes and won't somebody please think of the children? So they didn't, obviously we wouldn't, there was no culling or anything of the coyotes, but I believe there was some trapping and some stuff that went on to try and move them out. And now we're overrun with rabbits.
There you go.
And apparently somebody went to one of the city council meetings and was complaining about the rabbits. And one of the councilors looked up and said, well, you told us to get rid of the coyotes.
Yeah. What did you expect?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So growing a garden here now is a bit of a challenge because you literally have to put netting up and fencing,
Right.
and you're still going to get half your stuff eaten by rabbits.
Right, right. Well,
Spray it with
everywhere has those challenges, but what a great lesson to learn, because you actually get to learn about your wildlife and the food chain and your impact on it as a human being, which, are all very valuable lessons, even if it's not the half of your salad's gone at the end of the day,
Yep. Yep. No, it's, I think, when you give those kids, I love what you're doing. And when you give those kids a chance to show their power, that they can create, that they can nurture, there's nothing but good that comes out of that. I can't think of a negative thing that would come out of that. Now, I think this should be fun. Let's let the Canadian try and pronounce this. It's your website for the garden is malai.org.
Yes, which autocorrect was so kind to change it to malaria.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, it's Mala'ai, which actually means it means food garden in Hawaiian. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Alethea.
Yeah, we'll have links to Mala'ai and let's put up a link for real estate as well. If anybody wants to move to the island, they can always get in touch with Alethea.
Let's
That'd
get
be
that
great.
link. And if you're looking for a home with a garden in Hawaii, you couldn't talk.
Yeah.
To a
I know,
better person.
exactly.
That's right. If you want to be sustainable, I'm your person.
And remember, you can subscribe to our podcast, Nutrition Heretic Podcast, on both Stitcher and iTunes. And please, on both of them, leave us a rating. It's really important, and we appreciate when you rate us and let other people know how you feel about the show. And, of course, share it with all your friends. If you would like to be a guest on the show, or if you have comments or questions or a suggestion for a guest you would like to have on the show, please drop by our website, nutritionheretic.com, or drop by and say hello to us on facebook.com at facebook.com/Nutrition Heretic. Adrienne, as always, super pleasure. Alethea, thank you. What a fascinating discussion. We got to do more of this stuff.
I know. I'm telling you, I got the hookup down here.
That's right. There's lots and lots of this island especially has such a great movement around food and land and justice that it's a great place to be.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Thank you
ladies.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jim.